مرحبا، أنا اسمي داني رمضان. أنا سوري الأصل، مولود بدمشق. وحاليا أنا عايش بفانكوفر هون، وبشتغل منسق متطوعين بجمعية لحقوق المثليين والمثليات والمتحولين الجنسيين اسمها Community. I was born in a tiny house in downtown Damascus, in a place called Sarouja. The house itself has been in my family for 400 years. My grandfather and my grandmother were living there. My father and my mother lived there as well. I was born in that beautiful house. When I was around 8, the government decided to build a street in the area, so the house was demolished and we had to move away from downtown Damascus. We lived in the suburbs, and to be honest, it was just beautiful. When I was 17 or something, we had a fight, a huge fight, my father and I decided to come out too. It wasn't a decision that I made because I'm like brave and I want to like wave rainbow flags in the streets of Damascus. No, not really. I wanted to just piss him off, to be honest. I just wanted to like bother him with this knowledge. Like, here I am, like everything that you stand for and everything that the society has taught you, I stand against. And it was like an act of rebellion. We ended up having a very big fight. I ended up being kicked out of the house. I lived on the streets for a good month, and then I found myself a job in an internet cafe and found myself like a tiny little apartment, and I have been living on my own ever since. So basically I throw the 2, I get 4 and 3. I can move either 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 and put it here, or I can move 1, 2, 3, 4 and then 1, 2, 3.
Okay, this is very beautiful too.
This is my favorite set. I bought this in downtown Damascus in 2010, I would say, and it has traveled the world with me.
Yeah.
This is part of like the daily life in Syria. Like you will go to like a cafe in downtown Damascus, and you'll find like 6 or 7 of those with like people playing it and people sitting around cheering each other.
Yeah.
And also it's a very smart game to play because it includes a lot of luck, but it also includes a lot of strategy. Yeah. Like right now, I blocked you right here. That's a really good strategy for me because that stone is not going to move until I move all of my stones here. At the beginning, I was very fearful, always protecting that identity, always hiding it, worried that neighbors might find out, that the regime might find out, like the police might come and arrest me or something. So it was always like living under a lot of fear. And then like, you know, I traveled a lot. I went to Egypt, lived there for a while. And due to a lot of like different issues and different interactions, I ended up accepting my sexuality. And I realized that it's not actually like, it's not a puppy that like you can play with and then like at the end of the day just put in the doghouse and hide from everybody. It's like part of who you are. It's part of like who makes you a human. You see what I mean? It's the way that I interact with people that I love. This is me in downtown Damascus. This is right outside of the Umayyad Mosque actually. A lot of artists buy small shops over there and like start painting the old Damascus. This is a very old cafe in old Damascus. It's called the Nufara, which has been open since like the 1400s. When I went back to Syria in 2011, I ended up inviting a lesbian friend of mine to my house. We were sitting down and talking and stuff like that. And then she called a couple of her friends and I called a couple of my friends, and we ended up being like 10 people in the house. And it just like filled the house with this like positive energy because those people, those 10 people, never experienced being open about their sexuality, about like their attraction to same sex. And I realized that the community needs this. That's how me and my friend, me and my lesbian friend, we started this makeshift underground LGBTQ center in my house to protect it from the regime, to protect it from the authorities. We had to make sure that everybody who knows about it has to be vetted for. After a year and a half, I ended up being ratted out of the government because of my activities as well as because of my work as a journalist. I ended up being arrested in the airport, but I managed to convince them that I'm not the person that they're looking for, so I ended up running away from the country. I packed my stuff and overnight I just escaped the country and became a Syrian refugee in Lebanon. No, I don't actually. Yes. Yeah. How do I look?
You look super.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Cool. We applied for private sponsorship here to come to Canada, and 6 different Canadian people came together, put the funds up, helped us with the paperwork, and then we managed to come here in September 2014. When I arrived, to be honest, I was like, I know the culture, I know the language, I'm ready. I can like take that community by storm, and of course I couldn't be any more wrong. I arrived here and I discovered that the society is completely different from my expectations. The way that life here is completely different from everything that I've experienced before. When we do parties in like, you know, gatherings or parties in the Middle East, like everybody will come around and it's like laughing all over the place and loud music and people dancing and stuff like that. And then you come here and a dinner party is like you sit around the table and you use the right fork with the right spoon and make sure that you eat without producing any noise. And I'm like, okay, that's not fun. Like, where's the fun of that? You know what I mean? I want to start dancing now.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the stuff that was donated? That experience.
Sure. So when we arrived here, there was a lot of furniture and a lot of like clothing and stuff like that that was donated to us by the sponsors and their friends. But also a lot of the money that was fundraised to bring us here was directed towards buying furniture. So the couch was bought for us, the table was bought for us. We got donated that red chair, which is my favorite chair. It looks like a throne. I feel like a king sitting on a throne in it. Somebody, like, you know, who's a great friend of ours, donated a lot of artwork for us. So this painting was donated for us. And I mean, like, you know, we're refugees and everything, but like, you know, artwork is not high on our priorities when you arrive here to like to be donated. I found that the gay community here is very white-centric, very male-centric community. The gay community and the lesbian community are completely separate. And honestly, I felt that I'm exotic, that everybody is treating me as if I'm like this exotic creature that they want to like come and see. Oh, come and see the Syrian refugee. I'm like, I just wanted to be like normal and integrate into a community that welcomes me. When the gay community here achieved their rights federally here in Canada, and everybody have the right to marriage and the right to like express themselves, that's all beautiful thing, but we forget how difficult it is for others. You see what I mean? Like there are a lot of people who don't express those, don't experience those things the same way that the gay community here does. The gay community is divided in the way that like only gay people hang out together, lesbians hang out together. The gay community is very transphobic and rejects to actually understand the lived experiences of trans folks or people who have who are gender variant. I work full-time at Community. I'm their volunteer coordinator. My job is to support all the different services and programs that Community offer: counseling, youth space, senior space, education and training, through providing them with the right volunteers that fit into the organization. I have a project that's coming out in March where I have a drop-in for people of color, where I'm trying to integrate the newcomers and refugee community with the people of color community and trying to build this like friendship and meaningful relationships between the two. In my free time, and due to like a lot of media attention around Syrian refugees and me being one of the very few Syrian refugees here in Canada at the time, I ended up getting a lot of media attention, which resulted in me getting a lot of requests from people, from Canadian citizens and permanent residents here who are interested in supporting Syrian refugees. So I'm working with the Rainbow Refugee, the organization that supports like LGBTQ refugees in general. And my job basically is to connect all those people that come to me. They're saying, I want to sponsor and support Syrian refugees. I connect them together to create a group of 7. And then I introduce this group to Rainbow Refugee. And then I introduce a Syrian LGBTQ refugee to this group for them to sponsor. Actually, if you look from on my name in Arabic, it's like Dani Ramadan the faggot. Like seriously, if you Googled my name in Arabic, it's really? Like Dani Ramadan the faggot, literally. Big newspapers wrote about it, that we are the first gay Syrian couple to refugees who made it to Canada and got married. Right. And they made the article, like they actually fabricated even like like my response, like, you know, and I'm very happy to be the first gay Syrian refugee to get married, says Dani Ramadan. I'm like, you never actually did the interview. What the fuck is wrong with you? Where was it? ISIS was like, this is the faggot that used to write articles against the Islamic State, and now he's getting married in Canada. See how horrible they are. And then the regime is like, this is the guy who used to write articles against the regime in Syria, and now he turns out to be a bad guy. Is this the freedom you're asking for? Freedom of sexual deviance? And like, you know, the rebels are like, and this is a bad mark of the revolution. We never wanted gay people in Syria. I'm like, oh my God. We never got married. Get over it. One of the very common stereotypical ways of viewing Syrian refugees is to say that Syrian refugees, their story ends with a happy ending the minute that they arrive in the airport, which is completely untrue. When you arrive in the airport here in Canada, yes, you reach a country that is safe, that is welcoming, that is supportive of you if you're an LGBTQ person. But the truth is, everything for you has to be reset. You have to like worry about your career, because I had a career for 10 years as a journalist back in the Middle East, and then I come here and everybody expects me to like not to continue my career. Like, why would you be a journalist here? You see what I mean? You would worry about, like, you know, your place here as a new refugee. Everybody views you as somebody who takes, who might be taking like taxpayers' money and like just sitting aside and doing nothing all day. And I'm like, that also is horrible to say. You know, a lot of people who come here as Syrian refugees, they end up forced into you have to live in here, and you have to take that job, and you have to like live this way. You see what I mean? The truth is, all of those folks are people who were forced outside of their homes. They never chose to come here. They were forced into actually seeking refuge somewhere else. And it's within their right to make their own decisions, to actually have their self-determinations and decide their own future. When I was young, when I was like 20 or something, when I moved to Egypt, I started by, my first job was actually writing comics. I don't know how to paint or like to draw stuff, but like I used to write the storylines and somebody would paint them. And I did some really awesome stuff. To be an ally for the Syrian refugees that are already here, you have to welcome them. You have to make them feel like this is their home. So help them learn the language, for example. Talk to them, but don't ever talk down to them. Like, I had a guy who came to my office once. He's like, I want to pay the rent. And I'm like, excuse me, I just didn't hear the guy. He's like, I want to pay the rent, R-E-N-T. And I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, thank you for spelling it out, but I just didn't hear you. Another thing that is important is, don't ask me where I'm from, because that tells me that you think that I'm not from here. You see what I mean? There are a lot of people who are born here who still get that question, like, where are you from? And they say, like, I'm from Vancouver, I'm from, like, Calgary or whatever. And, like, they say, no, but where are you really from? And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, where are you really from? Like, what are you trying to, like, accomplish? And anybody would ask that question to a white person. Somebody came to me and told me that, but like, you know, asking you where you're from opens the conversation for me to ask you about Syria so you can educate me about Syria. I'm like, yes, thank you, that is true. But the fact is, I have the right to decide when I want to talk about Syria, when I want to talk about the civil war in Syria, and when I want to talk about the LGBTQ movement in Syria. It's triggering topics to me. Those are things that bring back bad memories to me, bring back sad moments in my life, as well as beautiful moments, but it's within my right to decide that, okay, now I am in an educational mood and I'm really willing to like give you all those information about Syria. And sometimes I just want to be on my own in a bar and drink a beer without anybody bothering me and asking me questions about where you're from. Canada is a mosaic at the end of the day, like pieces and little pieces from every culture in the world. And the Syrian culture is the latest culture that is forced into expanding across the world with the Syrian refugees. Learn about us. It doesn't have to always come from you asking me questions and me presenting my own opinion. Go on the internet and just figure out your own opinion and then make a Syrian dish.